8 health and nutrition tips to live like the French in the United States. So often on this channel, I talk about French culture and the French way of eating and how it's really beneficial. And a lot of my viewers are American and often tell me, well, it's great that you're telling us this, but we can't really apply this because we live in the United States and a lot of the things you say aren't necessarily like transferable to the United States. So today I thought I would make an entire video on how to apply certain French ways of eating or ways of living or certain principles to the actual way of life in the United States. This is totally possible because I am French and my whole family is French, and we lived in the United States for 5 years, and we did a pretty good job of maintaining our French culture in the United States, our French way of eating. We just adjusted certain things because we wanted to also, of course, make the most of American culture and learn about American ways of doing things. So I think that I was able to get the right balance, and I'm going to share with you how you can too. So the first thing that you need to do is to prioritize meal times. Now this is the most important one, I would say. French people are really good at making meal times their priorities. Now, you're not necessarily going to be able to do it for every meal because, for instance, in France, most people get like a 1 hour to 2 hour lunch break. And so I know that that's not necessarily possible in the United States, but what you can do is prioritize dinner and prioritize meals, family meals throughout like the whole weekend, things like that. When I say that French people prioritize it, I mean that obviously they have busy lives. Obviously they have things that get in the way. They have kids who have like activities. They have spouses who don't come home from work at the same time as them. They have to cook. They have to do like appointments and things like that. So obviously they are still very busy. It's not like they magically have nothing to do at 5 p.m. But for them, mealtime is a priority, and I know that in my family and in most of the families I know, we would schedule everything around that mealtime. So if we knew that we wanted to be eating as a family between 8 and 9 p.m., we would not schedule anything else between 8 and 9 p.m. It was like a set thing that was not even on our calendar because we were just so used to it, but it's something that we could not push back, that we could not skip, that we couldn't miss. I mean, obviously there were exceptions. There were days where something came up and we couldn't, but that was really rare. I have so few memories as a kid of me not having family meals with my parents. And I think that this tip is so important because it encompasses so many different things that you need to be doing. So you need to be spending at least 30 minutes to 1 hour eating so that you're completely focused on your meal and that you can really take the time to eat without being rushed or without being stressed. And that way you're going to be able to focus more on your hunger cues. Now, when you're eating as a family, you're not going to be able to cater to everyone's hunger cues. Obviously, it happened to me a lot of times to like go to dinner and I wasn't that hungry because I'd had a snack like 2 hours earlier, but that's okay. I adapted. I had a lighter dinner, and then if I wanted to go back 3 hours later and then have like another little snack, then I would. And prioritizing meal times is also saying, I choose this for myself. I'm choosing to spend some time to have a nice meal with my family. It doesn't even have to be with your family. Like if you live alone, you can prioritize meal times for yourself as well, but it's a moment where you'll know that you'll have only your food to worry about. You can only like think about enjoying your food and having this moment with yourself, and then you can also focus more on eating mindfully and making sure that you're in tune with your hunger cues. Also, when you're having all your meals as a family, you're way less likely to like order takeout or for everyone to just eat their own thing and just eat like snacky foods. You're more likely to actually stick to kind of a meal plan and stick to making actual meals with like whole ingredients. The second thing that you want to do is you want to grocery shop pretty often. Now this is a thing that French people do. They don't really bulk buy a lot of their things. They have to go grocery shopping pretty often, and often what they do is they go like once a week for like their main groceries, and then they can go to like the farmer's market a couple of times throughout the week as well in order to get fresh fruit and vegetables, fresh produce, things like that. So I definitely recommend trying to do that. And French people kind of naturally grocery shop pretty often. First of all, our fridges are much smaller, and second of all, we like to have fresh produce. Usually we buy like mainly whole foods, not like packaged items items, and so these foods tend to not last as long, so we have to grocery shop a little more often. And another important thing to do that kind of ties into that is that you need to be making grocery shopping lists based on your meal. So you need to have a general meal idea of the meals that you want to make, let's say for the upcoming 4 days, and then write down the ingredients you need and then shop for those ingredients. That way you're able to get ingredients that you're actually going to use for your meal. You can get a bunch of like whole ingredients that you then use to make a recipe. Whereas if you don't do that, if you just grocery shop like once every 2 weeks and you have no plan, you're just going to end up buying a bunch of stuff you don't need. Most of the time it's going to be lots of processed foods, easy foods to kind of just throw in the microwave. The third thing that you need to do is you need to shop for whole foods over processed foods. Now, the reason why this is really important in this video, where I talk about doing like the French things and adapting them to the American way of life, is because I know that the ingredients can be totally different when you look at foods that are in France and foods that are in the United States. Usually the United States, they have like much fewer rules regarding additives, preservatives, ingredients, things that they just add to food like that. Even in terms of sugar and fat, all of that tends to be much better quality in France than in the United States. So you may be like, well, then that sucks because I can't just have the French food that is healthier. Well, the thing you can do is focus on buying more whole foods, because whole foods aren't affected by this. Okay, yes, maybe certain fruit and vegetables will have a little bit more pesticides or will taste not as good as the ones found in France. Okay, yes, but in general, it's still so much better than getting processed foods. And if you're able to focus on getting these whole grains, on getting these beans, legumes, and on getting all these fruit and vegetables, then you won't have to be worried about all of the things that they're adding in American foods that you can't find in French foods. Now, I'm just also taking this opportunity to restate that preservatives and additives aren't necessarily the devil. In some cases, they're absolutely fine. And I made a video on that right here if you're interested, or in the description. Another really important thing that you need to be doing right now is to practice moderation, balance, all of that. And I think that that's what enables us to have the right middle ground between testing out American foods and American ways of doing things and still staying true to like our French culture. Our mom would allow us to have the bright green frosting on like this giant cookie cake, and she would allow us to have like Oreos for breakfast and to have like Kraft's mac and cheese for dinner. We would do all of these things, but it was in moderation. The rest of the time we would be having our more standard traditional French meals. And the way that can look like for you is you can set up, let's say 70% of the time, set up a meal plan where you have mostly balanced meals. And I have a bunch of videos that can help you do that if you're interested in learning how to do that. You can check out my healthy eating for beginners video to start with. Then you can also have 20%, 30% of treat foods, of foods that are more fun to eat, of foods that are really like American, super fat, high in sugar, processed. Like, sorry, that's the way French people see American food, no offense. And that's the way French people do things in France as well, because we have our croissant and we have our pastries and our bread and cheese and wine. We have all of these things, but we just enjoy them in moderation. And you can totally have your American snacks in moderation as well. It's just that you also need to be focusing on the rest of the time where you need to be eating your more balanced, more whole foods based meals that we talked about previously. Now, another thing that is a little bit linked but very important is to focus on quality rather than quantity. That is a huge thing for French people. For them, like an idea of a good meal at a nice restaurant is having small amounts of foods, but that are really, really high quality. Whereas in the United States, whenever I went to places and it was like known for the food and everybody was excited about the food, it was because they would have huge all-you-can-eat buffets of tons of processed foods and like junk food and like lots of treats, things like that. So the approach is different, and again, it's not something that you can necessarily control when you're going to a restaurant, for instance. When you're eating at home, you can totally focus on getting quality ingredients. Like French people would much rather get a nice steak from their local butcher once a week rather than get like huge things of ground beef from like a low-cost grocery store and have that every day. They would rather eat one cookie that they make homemade with quality ingredients rather than buying a box of cookies from the grocery store and having like 5 cookies each day. The 6th thing that you need to do to bring the French lifestyle into your life is to stop ordering takeout. And this is for 2 reasons. So the first reason is just that French people order less takeout. It's really not something that we do automatically. It's really something that we do like as a treat. It's not usually something that we do out of convenience because we have nothing to cook. It's kind of like it's something that we plan, or if we're with friends, it's something that we're gonna do in that sense. And I would really encourage you to treat ordering takeout in that way as well. Make it a treat, make it something that you plan for, that you're excited for, that you get to do, and that is exciting and delicious, and not something that you just do because you're too lazy to make a meal, you don't have time because you didn't plan ahead or you didn't buy your groceries that we talked about. And the second reason why you need to be doing that is that in the US, takeout food more often has things like high salt content, like is really high in sodium, is like really processed, can be deep fried. There can be like lots of added sugar, like refined sugar, lots of trans fats, things like that. All of these things that aren't really healthy, and these are things that you don't find as much in French food that you order for takeout. So if you're limiting your takeout, you're also getting closer to the French way of eating, which is limiting these foods. And you can also always make your own version of whatever it is that you want to be ordering at home. Like if you want to order pizza, you can totally make a homemade pizza. If you want to order a burger, you can make a homemade burger. And just doing these things at home will enable you to control what's inside the food much more. Now, this doesn't mean that obviously it's bad to have takeout or anything like that. Another thing that you need to be doing is you need to be going on daily walks. And that is very important because French people are just walking everywhere. And I know that this is because the layout is totally different. If you go to an American city, you're gonna need your car to drive around everywhere. That's why you guys get your driver's license at 16. And most French people in Paris don't even have a driver's license at 25 because they don't need it. So I'm not going to tell you to like walk to the grocery store or walk to your gym instead of driving there because I know that that's not realistic. However, I really encourage you to practice daily walks as if you were going somewhere, except you could just walk around your neighborhood, walk around your house, even like go up and down your stairs if you have stairs, or just walk anywhere. Even walk on a treadmill, whatever, just get in those steps. And the final thing that you want to be doing is to take things slow. So I made an entire video on like the art of French living and slow living, all of that you can check out right here or in the description if you're interested. But basically you really need to give yourself some time to actually live your own life and to take pleasure in doing things that you enjoy and stop this hustle culture that is so prevalent in the US. Now, I definitely understand that this is harder for you to do in the US because obviously that's not the way that everything is set up. And then for work, it's also more complicated to take like long breaks, things like that. But all the time that you have where you're at home and you have like time to yourself, you can do whatever you want. I really urge that you spend some time doing something that isn't necessarily productive. Like go grab a coffee with a friend and just have a nice conversation, or go walk in the park, go just spend some time with family, friends without thinking about anything that's like stressing you out, without thinking about all the work that you're not doing or the work that you have to do tomorrow. Just take some more time to be fully in the present moment and like appreciate the small things. And the reason why this mindset is so important is because it just ties into general health and wellness so well. Because if you're constantly grinding, if you're constantly wanting to be super productive, if you're like sleeping is a waste of time, doing stuff I like is a waste of time, all of this, then you're just gonna burn out and you're not gonna be healthy. I think that wanting too much productivity can definitely kill the rest of your other things that you want to do, all of your other hobbies. Again, this doesn't mean that you should not work or do anything like that. Lots of French people work a lot. Some work from like 7 in the morning to 8 at night. Like it's not necessarily 9 to 5, 35 hours like everybody says, but when they are home, they are fully invested in that time that they have to relax and do things that they actually enjoy, and they're not constantly thinking about what they can do to be more productive, what side hustle they can start, what hobby they can monetize, all of that. Hopefully you found these tips useful. Let me know which one you're going to be trying out, and let me know if you have any more tips or any more questions. And I hope to see you in my next video. Don't forget to like this one and subscribe. Bye!